Welcome home, where we provide information, inspiration, and motivator after motivator after motivator. We're here with David Sanders Sr. How are you, David?
What's going on, Mr. Riley? I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. What's up? What's up with the salute? Where you from, man?
I'm from Valdosta, Georgia. The salute is just something I've been, I don't know, I guess you could say kind of conditioned to do growing up.
Oh yeah. When did that start? When did you start saluting people?
Uh, Maybe around like 2012, 2011, 2012, group of friends and I, we just throw up the signal. Deuces,
Right.
salute.
Right. You know, that's one of the things that I definitely paid attention to over the years as I was growing up is how do we greet each other? You know what I mean? I remember, you know, there was a growth in how we all greeted one another as we grew up. You know, there was a time when everybody would do the handshake, everybody doesn't know how to do. Then everybody started doing the fist bump, and then everybody started calling each other bro or bruh. And now people they come in the room and they do this to one another. So I see you staying up with the times, man.
Trying to. It's kind of
Yeah,
hard. It's like technology. It just keeps going, keep evolving.
yeah, that's right. That's right. That's what we do. We keep evolving and we keep growing. Now, what was life like down there in the South for you?
So again, like I said, I come from Valdosta, Georgia. I'm actually the youngest of six children, and
Wow.
my mom was a single parent. So she was a single mom raising six kids. She actually adopted two of my cousins. So from time to time, you'll hear us interchange bruh or cuz, but more times than not, we'll exchange bro with each other because we are bro essentially. But it was tough. So having one parent in a home with one income and between 6 to 8 children, it wasn't easy.
hmm
And then
So go ahead.
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
When you say that it wasn't easy, can you paint that picture for us?
Yeah, so there were times, and we hear often, like, or we see on movies, or we hear often through our hood tales, where people talk about not having lights on, not having water on, and things like that. So there were times that we were in a home without lights, without water. But I'll tell you, my mom, she had a work ethic like no other person I've ever seen. She at one point in her life, in my life, she worked 3 jobs. So she spent a lot of time away, but then she would come home, and the times that she did spend at home, she would give it all to us. So it
Mhm.
was it was hard sometimes to even understand how she even did it. Like,
Right.
but one thing I can say is that she kept food on the table, so that happened. She kept
Now,
clothes on her back.
did that inspire you seeing your mother work day in and day out like that and support between six
Most
and eight?
definitely. Yeah, most definitely. Even as a child, I worked a lot. Just seeing her work was an inspiration to me. I did the same. Like, I can remember helping to build houses before middle school. I can remember washing cars at a car wash before middle school. Working on a farm, working in the landfill, working to pick up metal and aluminums, pecan, fruits, vegetables, like always my whole life I've worked. I can't remember there been a time in my life without having a job.
Right. How old were you when you started your first job?
My first legal job.
Well, no, no, not didn't have to be legal because you seem like the reason why I'm asking is because when you describe how you were doing different things in the community and you're calling it a job. Number one, it tells me that you were taking what you were doing seriously. But number two, you were working before you were 16. Am I right?
Correct, yeah. I would say my first job that I would go to regularly um, would have been that car wash. My brothers and a group of friends, we lived on the east side of Valdosta at the time, and they would go up the street to this car wash. And initially, the owner of the car wash would tell me no, I was too young. But I'm only a year and a half younger than my brother, and I was 5 at the time. But because I wanted to do it, I didn't. I worked. I was willing to work without pay. He seen that I washed a few cars, and he's like, "Okay, wow, you actually do real well." So instead of allowing me to just jump inside of a car that one of my friends were already working on, he allowed me to begin washing those cars myself.
So at 5 years old, you were working at a car wash,
Absolutely,
washing cars, busting them down.
absolutely, yeah, definitely.
Now, tell me, were you the one climbing up in the windshield, wiping out that windshield, and climbing in the back, wiping out that back window?
You better believe it. The smallest one in the group with
Right,
the little hands.
right. And where were your brothers and sisters at this time?
So several different places. I mean, like my oldest brother, he moved out of the house when he was real young. I mean, maybe like 14 to 17.
He
He was
moved out
young
at
when he
14 and
moved out.
17.
Yeah, he was real young. My eldest sister and the elders of the clan, she actually moved in with my auntie. So she had moved away to I think it was South Carolina at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it was like four of us still in the home, and my brother would come in and out of the home occasionally. Um, but he's actually the one too. He actually is one too that helped my mom out with my brother and me. Like
Mm-hmm.
before I ever seen any name brand anything, it was my brother bringing it into the home. So
Right. Now, I haven't heard you mention your father yet. Where was he?
to be honest with you, bro, I don't know who my father is. To be honest with you, so I whenever I recognize anyone being my father, I recognize God as my father.
Mm-hmm.
I had a stepdad, but he came into my life later in life. But during these times, it was my mom and God.
Mm-hmm. So what role did the church play for you and your development when you were growing up? What was it like?
It was huge. Every Sunday, my mom made sure we made it to church. Every Sunday, there
Mm-hmm.
was. Then we had the vacational Bible studies and the Bible studies and things like that. But she definitely made sure we made it to church. So it was huge. And then to deal with that amount of stress and looking back over my life, I'm so very thankful she had us in the church because it provided direction. So
Mm-hmm.
when I ran into a little turbulence here and there in life, I went back to what I was taught as a child, coming up in the church.
Mm-hmm. What was one of the most important lessons you learned as a child in the church that you believe should be passed down to other children? Somebody, because as we know and as we'll talk about today, there's young people out there right now with no lights on. There's young people out there right now who are living a turbulent life, and maybe you have an age appropriate lesson for them that you could pass down. What would that be?
So the first thing I can always just like think back being drilled into us as children was one, the Ten Commandments, but also honor thy mother and thy father.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of mothers and fathers out there not really doing the right thing. So I always go back to that, the Ten Commandments. But then there are mothers and fathers out there that we don't fully appreciate and we take full advantage of. And again, looking back, had I been a wiser young gentleman, I would have listened to my mom about a lot of things.
Things like what?
Um, Choose your friends wisely.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the biggest things that has helped my life to progress currently is just learning how to find um, friends that are doing appropriate things. And again, appropriate being whatever my desire or my goal is.
Mm-hmm.
Finding friends that are doing something similar or has already mastered whatever it is I'm going into, or has a skill or a talent that I don't possess, and spending time with those friends versus
Mm-hmm.
making friends that are totally unproductive or
Right.
going in the opposite direction.
So, in other words, if you had not made choices and spiritual choices at that to get your life in a positive direction. You could possibly not even be here today.
Absolutely. I was a young kid, still in high school, and there was an attempt on my life, and having my brothers there, they intervened. But yeah, someone tried to take my life when I was a teenager.
Hmm.
And then my best friend, one of my well, one of my closest friends, we consider each other cousins. One of my closest friends, he actually was murdered. He was shot in the back of the head, and I was supposed to
Wow.
be in Valdosta, Georgia that night. I was stationed in Maryland at the time, and I was supposed to drive down, and after speaking with my mom, decided not to, and
Hmm.
he was murdered that night.
Wow. I'm sorry to hear that, and unfortunately, that is a common theme in our community. I want to know what's your take. What's your take on gun violence in our neighborhoods?
I think so. Before I speak on gun violence, if I may, I just want to speak on having a gun. So I think being protected is definitely responsible. But I think where we fail our communities at is not fully teaching the power of the weapon and the appropriate use of the weapon, and and without that, having that weapon then becomes irresponsible.
Hmm. So, what would you say is the power of the gun, so to speak?
So just like knowledge by itself is chaotic, is useless. I can take knowledge just like a gun, I could sit it on a cabinet or on a countertop, excuse me, and nothing will ever happen. It'll just sit there. But if I pick that gun up, I can use it for good or I can use it for bad, just like knowledge. I can use it for good or I can use it for bad. I can use it to hunt. I can use it to, again, protect the home.
Hmm.
Or I can use it for extortion and violence and
Hmm.
oppression.
So,
So
how old were you? How old were you when you held your first gun?
I think I may have been about 4 or 5. My mom taught us at an early age how to the mechanics of a weapon, just in case at any point she's not there, somebody breaks into the home, how to use the weapon in order to defend ourselves.
Mhm. And so, and juxtaposing the power of the gun to the power of life, what do you think we need to learn about the value of life as we continue to live in an era where it's responsible to have a gun?
So um, life itself, we have a lot of talks about responsibility in this mentorship group we have, and we talk about just life and the responsibility of life. So if I'm going to equate gun ownership, if excuse me, if I'm going to compare gun ownership
To possession of your own life.
to, to a possession of life, um, then I would talk about uh, preparedness.
Mm.
Um, so if you live by the sword, you die by the sword, is what I believe. So preparedness. Am I prepared to be appropriate and responsible with this weapon and use it for the right reasons, or am I prepared to go out and do the wrong thing, which then I must be further prepared to die by the gun.
Hmm. Right. Now, the reason why I went down this avenue a little bit is because I can recall when I was younger, just like you're saying, guns were around when I was younger, and like it was not totally uncommon for me to see a 13-year-old with a gun in his pants
Right.
at different times of my life. And even today, in some neighborhoods across America, there is 12 and 13-year-olds with a gun on their person right now. And to me, those young people, whether they believe that they know the power of the gun or not, they don't understand the value of life. And so my question then becomes, at what point do we talk to our young people about the value of life? And how do we connect the value of life to your responsibility to need a gun. You see what I mean?
Absolutely. I see where you're at now. Um, to be honest with you, if I were to begin to speak to any human about gun ownership and gun safety, I would start as early as concept. Um,
Mm,
when a human is able to understand concepts, um, so if I have a child and they're eating, and at whatever point that child is able to take the plate whenever they're done and knock it off the table as a
mhm,
signal of I'm finished. At that
mhm,
point is my responsibility as the parent to teach instead of knocking the plate off, an alternative, taking a spoon, tapping the dish or what have you. Likewise, if I have a child who's old enough to reach for or question the existence of a weapon, then it's time for me to teach this child how to properly use the weapon. So
mm,
my wife used to think I was crazy. I would teach I would teach my children at a very young age to plug things into the light socket. And the question became, well, why do you teach them that so young? That's not responsible. Well, I teach them so young because they're going to be curious whether I show them or not. I would much rather show them how to do it, and every time I need something plugged up, have them do it. That way, they get tired of doing it. It's no more. Is no longer fun. It's no longer. They no longer have any skepticism about it.
mhm.
It's now a chore. It's become a chore. So I take the skepticism away by introducing them to it, and then giving them the responsibility of plugging things in.
Right. I think that's a solid point. Do you think that we discuss responsibility with our young people enough? The actual concept of responsibility in all things. Do you think we talk about that enough?
I don't think that we do. I don't think that we do because I don't think that many of us know the true meaning of responsibility. I
Hmm.
think a lot of us equate responsibility to work or tasks,
Right.
and we don't fully equate it to our how we respond to all things. So
Right. Yeah.
responsibility is how we respond to things, our ability to respond appropriately. It's
Mhm.
not only when there's work, it's not only when there's trauma or things like that. It's to all things. So
Right.
like us being here today, my responsibility was to ensure that all my communications were taken care of. And while I did that, there was some other things that required me to be resilient, i.e., I wasn't responsible in that I didn't look at the time appropriately. So
Mhm.
I had to find an alternative location. So understanding that sometimes we're going to miss the mark, but how do we recover from that?
Mhm.
As another realm of responsibility that I don't think we discuss, at least not nearly enough to our children.
I think you really just made one of the best points of the evening just now when you say that not only do we learn or discuss enough about responsibility, but we don't learn or discuss enough about recovery. I think
Right.
that's huge. Can you talk a little bit about recovery? Because in retrospect, there will be young people, there will be people in our age group or above our age group who are going to be piqued by this conversation. I want you to talk a little bit about recovery as it relates to responsibility.
Absolutely. So I've been reading this book called Speed of Trust. And essentially, what it says is that when we're not able to fully trust, it slows down progress. And so, oftentimes, especially in our generation, we deal with all or nothing. Either I'm going to get it all, I'm going to do it all, or I'm going to do nothing. And we do
Right.
the same thing with success. We think success has to be right now, and oftentimes, when we fully dream how big our aspirations are, we give up because it's like, oh man, that's a huge mountain. And instead of taking one step at a time and learning how to achieve small wins and learning and recognizing small wins, and using those small wins to create this avalanche effect, right?
Hmm.
And so, likewise with recovery, we throw the whole relationship away when someone does something very small. We have a simple argument, and this person is stupid. They don't know what they're talking about. I never want to talk to them again. And I see it a lot on Facebook. Okay, if you don't agree with me on this one thing, we've been friends for 30 plus years, but you don't agree with me with this one thing, then we absolutely cannot be friends.
Right. And
And
that sounds to me like almost like cancel culture. You familiar with that?
I'm not yet.
So when somebody who's in a public milieu, they might be having a conversation on Facebook, they might be having a conversation on Instagram, they might have been on a media outlet, and they say something that people don't like, and people say, "Oh, let's cancel them."
Right.
You heard that? You heard
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. I see it all the time. Yeah.
Right. And so people's willingness to cancel somebody else is like not understanding the value of recovery. It's almost like people are too quick to fail. They're okay with failing before they give a 10 toes and 10 finger attempt at recovery. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I say all the time, we should have a plan, but we should have a get back up plan,
Mm,
right? So people want to jump from plan A to plan B like that
right.
instead of staying with plan A, just learning how to get back up. Because I've been in the ring several times, and thank God I've never been knocked down, but I always have a plan for if I'm knocked down. Uh, I talk to myself before I get in the ring about what that would look like, what that could potentially feel like, and if I am to be knocked down, what is my plan to get back up? How do I recover from it? How do I find my distance away from my opponent once I'm back up on my feet in order to get back right? So likewise with the opposition in
Right.
anything that we're doing in life, yeah, we should have a get back up plan. How am I going to recover? If I blow all my money in this investment, am I just going to give up, or am I going to learn from my mistakes, talk to people about the mistakes, and then look to partner with other people in order to get back to plan A?
That's right. Can you talk to me? Actually, you're getting a lot of love out there in the building right now. Yolanda Riley says The Speed of True by Stephen M.H. Covey. And
Absolutely.
also, I hope you didn't miss out that Landis said it's important to learn how to recover from the missing mark. So true. I mean, the things that you're saying are really resonating with the community tonight. I want you to know that as well.
Thank
Also, Ani
you.
Riley says you can learn from everyone. There's something powerful about taking the time to understand one's perspective. When you get in comments like that, that you're in the correct vein. I think it would be very powerful for you to talk about a time in life when you got knocked down and you had to come up with a plan for you to get back up.
Definitely. I remember being deployed to Afghanistan, and this is one of the toughest times of my life. I was in Afghanistan, and I end up getting demoted.
Okay.
So what happened was I was studying for the board, and this is right around the time I met my wife. I'm studying for the board, and I end up falling asleep, and I missed formation. Well, I got counseling, pretty much them telling me don't do it again or you're going to get punished. And then the very next day, same thing, studying for the board, fell asleep. And this time they're like, hey, no more kidding. You do it again, I'm going to slam you. Studying for the board, fell asleep. So I had all these alarm clocks. I had like three alarm clocks set up. I missed all of them, right? And so I ended up getting demoted. Well, I was bothered by that because uh, just from my point of view, I don't take medicine. I've never liked medicine, even as a child. I never really liked the dependency on anything. And I was on a muscle relaxers because I was so stressed out while in the combat zone and dealing with some things that were going on back home. I was just fully stressed out.
Right.
And what happened was I thought I had a wisdom tooth issues, but when I went to the dentist explained to me that I was grinding my teeth so hard at night that my muscles were locking up,
Hmm.
and I got prescribed some muscle relaxers. Well, those muscle relaxers caused the drowsiness, and so I wasn't able to articulate that at the time because I didn't know that was my issue. All I knew was for whatever reason I couldn't get up. So for about 9 years, I struggled with sleep. I could not sleep past 4 hours, and I would jump in my sleep thinking I was late for every occasion. And finally, I went to go speak to a psychologist,
Mm-hmm.
and she was explaining to me how to get over all these things and how to essentially accept that it was the past. So let me back up. So how did I personally, how did David recover from, and I wanted to get out of the military. I was
Right.
done. I felt like my leadership didn't help me. I felt like everything they did was against me, nothing for me. And
Mm-hmm.
so I felt like I wasn't appreciated. I need to leave. Well, after evaluating everything that happened, one of the things I learned is that I gained a lot of trust and respect from senior leaders, because during, and I didn't even realize, during the time that I was on the extra duties, and so extra duties just mean even after you get off work, you got to go back to work to like clean things and reorganize things and stuff like that. So after I got off the extra, well, while I was on the extra duty, I was singing and still talking to people, keeping people happy, and things like that. Didn't fully recognize that at the time. Um, I had this the psychologist that I talked to at the time tell me that I helped him get through a lot of the issues that he was going through because of my ability to still be joyful during everything that happened. So what helped me was none other than God. Because while I wanted to be bitter, I couldn't. While I wanted to be mad, I couldn't. While I wanted to give up, I couldn't. And I continued to grow essentially outside of my consciousness. Like I continue to evolve, I continue to be strengthened outside of my conscious. So fast forward into today and my understanding of what I did to recover. I recognize stress as a tool instead of as a deterrence or opposition, or as a obstacle. So a
Yep.
lot of times we look at stress, stress is bad. Well, stress is required. We cannot live without stress. Stress makes us stronger depending on how we look at it. Had I looked at my situation as I'm a failure, nothing I do is good enough, no one I was betrayed, I would have gotten out of the military. And at
Right.
first, I didn't think like that. But what my thoughts became were, I'm going to show them I can do this.
Right.
This was a setback, and they made a mistake, and I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to prove to them that they made a mistake. And you know what? I needed this so I could get refocused.
Right.
And so instead of looking at the stressor as a bad thing, I looked at the stressor as something that was helping to push me forward.
Right. And so what I also hear you talking about, David, is accountability. So let's
Absolutely.
introduce that word in this conversation too. What role did the accountability play in your not only get back up plan in your life, but your ability to rise above your challenges throughout life? Talk about accountability.
So for that particular incident, absolutely, I had to realize that whether I was on medication or not, it was my responsibility to be somewhere on time. That
Mhm.
was my responsibility. And I carried that, and I continue to carry that, but I carried that for 9 years in a bad way to where it affected my sleep, until I got the appropriateness from it. Yes, you have to be accountable for your actions, but no, you don't have to think that it's not an all or nothing. Everyone isn't looking to slam you. You have new relationships. You have a fresh start with a fresh unit with fresh coworkers. So don't put them in the same pot that you were in with your other coworkers. Oh, and by the way, had they known or were able to understand what you were going through, the situation may have been different. Now you're able to better communicate what you have going on so that no one is left in the dark, to include
Right.
yourself. Because I may say something in my life that's untrue. Even me, I may say something in my life to maybe try to give myself a boost. Or I may say something in my life that maybe I want to remember not to do, but I may be speaking incorrectly over my own life. So
Right.
being able to communicate appropriately with other people, then fosters that accountability. Just like here right now.
Right.
I was talking about stress and stress appropriation and being able to understand and appreciate stress, but using accountability, which then helps me become more accountable in my communication as well.
That's right. We're sitting here with David Sanders, and we're getting ready to take a brief break. But when we get back, we're going to get into some real value from David Sanders Sr. This gentleman is a wealth of knowledge, and he has a lot more on the way for us. So stay tuned. America's Next Motivator. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. America's Next Motivator. Hosted by Cedric Riley. Sponsored by our good friends at 4D Healthware. And we're back. David, can you talk to me about the value of therapy in your life?
I resisted it at first.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. It was the stigma, like therapy is bad. Therapy means you have an issue. Therapy means you're not strong enough. Therapy means you're weak. And for a long time, I resisted the idea of it. I resisted the thought of therapy. Like, how can somebody else tell me what I feel? How can somebody else tell me how to feel, how to think, what to think, when to think? And what I didn't realize is that yes, I may have this specific issue that no one can tell me about, but then there are all of these objectives around this specific issue that never change. It's like math never changes.
Right.
And so 2 plus 2 will always be 4.
Right.
And so there's some life that we can get from therapists that we may have just missed altogether. And while it doesn't speak specifically to what we're dealing with, having a full understanding of the objectivity around our specific issue helps us to better deal with those things.
Right. Now, do you think that you're dealing with the absence of your father played into your disbelief in something like therapy or counseling? And the reason why I ask you that is because from what I see, right, when I've gone to a friend's house and their dad was there raising them, or when I observe father-son relationships today, there's a constant iron sharpens iron sort of lifestyle that I see. There is a constant, healthy sort of back and forth, or a constant steering, if you will, from the father to the son. And I because I grew up without my father as well. And I wonder if that lack of an effective back and forth with somebody who looks like you, who potentially behaves like you, contributes to you not really believing in therapy.
I've never even thought of that, to be honest with you. I know a lot of it was just being in the military and having this fear of, well, if something's wrong with me mentally, I can't carry a weapon. If I can't carry a weapon, I can't continue on in my career. So I know that part was there. But as far as not having a father, it very well could be. I never thought of that. I know it did play a huge part in my ability to appreciate authority, or even listen to authority. Because when I first came in, I was hard-headed.
Right.
I really was.
Right.
But
now,
I'm not sure what it did for therapy.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great discussion we're having right now, and I think it's good. It's good for people to see, just two gentlemen having a conversation about life and unpacking some of the things that have gone into it. I keep hearing you mentioning the military, so I take it you're in the service.
I am. I'm in the U.S. Army. I've been there for 14 years.
Wow. How's that been? How's it been in an army for you? And what position do you assume there?
So currently, I'm a human resource. Well, I'm working as an equal opportunity practitioner, but I'm a human resources professional in the military. It's been rough. It's been really rough. Even at the start of my career, it was really rough in basic training.
Hmm.
Um, but it's been, but I'm thankful that it's been rough. I'm thankful. I've seen and I've heard a lot of people that were advanced in the military or given a handout and helped up in the military. And mine was quite the opposite for the most part. I had some really good leaders, but I had some really toxic leaders in my career. And I'm thankful because, again, looking back over those times spent with those toxic leaders, it really helped me to assess me. What do I not want to be like?
Hmm.
And being that I went in the opposite direction of what those leaders were, it gave me the opportunity to meet people from so many different walks of life. People are so very open and honest and candid with me, and I can appreciate that because it helps me to grow. Seeing again those objectivities helps me shape who David should and shouldn't be.
Hmm. And so how did it open your mind when you got out of basic training and you were a part of something that was thousands of people strong? How did that open your mind?
It was it, it was liberating
Hmm.
because I too lived in Cleveland. So I grew up in Valdosta, Georgia. I moved to Cleveland for 3 years.
Cleveland,
Uh,
Ohio.
yes, yes, sir.
Okay.
123rd and Kinsman on the east side of Cleveland,
Wow.
and then I moved back to Valdosta. Um, and while I met a lot of friends up and down the East Coast, I really didn't know much about life and culture. There are
Hmm.
so many different types of cultures, people with different languages, and there are different issues. It it helped me to understand that no man is an island. No one is on this earth by themselves, and that everybody has different challenges, and to be appreciative of the things that I do have because I struggled a lot during that time with the things that I didn't have or I never had,
Hmm.
to include a father. But then hearing some of the stories of fathers who were abusive and fathers who were toxic and neglectful, I was thankful to God that I didn't have a father.
Hmm.
And so it really was liberating. It really did help to strengthen my character.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Okay. And so in your life, you had this brain opening experience from being a part of something that was just honorable and huge, right? And like you said, you got to observe leaders from an objective standpoint, and you were able to sort of prune yourself through the guidance that was provided for you, and while other people were pruning you as well. And so when you talk about magnificent experiences like that in my different type of world, I'm thinking about the millions of young people out there who need that sort of a brain opening experience in order for them to begin to understand the value of life, understand the concepts of responsibility, understand the concepts of accountability, and to really dodge the major pitfalls that could be lurking for them out there. Um, do you think that young people also need a brain opening, eye awakening experience in their lives as well?
Most definitely. So the Army teaches this training, and I was blessed to be able to go become a master resilience trainer. But the Army teaches master resilience training to all of its soldiers and their family members. And I wanted to take that system and actually go into these neighborhoods and teach, underprivileged kids or fatherless kids how to become more resilient. How do we become more resilient? Essentially, how do we navigate through the bad and become better because of it?
Right.
And that training is for me was for me the absolute best training the military could have given me.
Mhm.
I had gone to the Harvard negotiation course. I just currently graduated the equal opportunity course. I had the opportunity to go through the immersion leader course with George Washington. So I was able to go to a lot of training. Um, I got introduced to the conflict resolution course, but above all of that training, I still hold the master resilience training in the highest regard. Yeah,
So you took some of that information. You took your level of mastery, and you created your own system out of it.
absolutely. So
Wow.
when I was denied the ability to train and teach the MRT to underprivileged children, I prayed to God and I just told God, listen, I really want to make change in the world. I really want to make change in our communities. What can I do? What should I do? And the revelation was create your own system. You've had enough leadership training and initially it was a program, right? I woke up to, oh, I'm gonna start this program. You had enough training to start your own program. And so through prayer and fasting, I started writing. And I'll be honest with you, Mr. Riley, when I first completed it, I didn't understand it. I couldn't fully conceptualize what it was. And I did all of this uh, inspired by God through the direction of God. So David's carnal mind didn't understand the system initially. And it took me a very long time
How
to
long?
I initially wrote the skeleton of the system in 2016 as a
Right.
program.
Right.
And I
So
didn't do anything with it for 4 years.
wow. You know, believe me when I tell you that I can identify what you're saying 100%. And you correct me if I'm wrong, but what I hear from what you're saying is that, you had a desire to provide a mind open experience for youth in the community, but it wasn't as easy as, taking a book off your shelf and saying, hey guys, I brought this back from my grand experience for you. You, in fact, had to create your own book, which resulted in stress, right? Which you
Correct.
then talk to God about. So you talk to God about the stress, right? And then God inspired you to write your own system. I want you to talk about the power of writing in the life of someone who wants to make their world a bigger and better thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the the power of writing is it's grand. It's huge. It's write the vision, make it plain, right? So a lot of times we talk and we talk and we talk and we hear ourselves speak, and it becomes so mundane that it's just that it's just talk. But when you put things down on paper, it almost feels like an instruction. Now I must do this. Um, and that's how it was with me when I sat down and wrote all this stuff. Initially, it was like it's not mine. I even told myself a lot of the time it's not mine, and I didn't want the burden. That's a burden. I don't want it. I don't want to do it, and because it became a reality. I had all of these desires. I want to do all of these things. I wanted to do all of these things with someone else's knowledge, with someone else's intellectual property. But when God actually inspired me to sit down and write this thing, I became a little fearful
Mm-hmm.
because again, I was at all or nothing, and then I began to write out the flesh of these things that I was inspired to write,
Mm-hmm.
and now I must follow these things. But it was easier. It was easier because now I have the instructions of all of these things. See,
Right.
when we sit down and we write, instead of just, preaching at someone, we began to practice what we preach because the words become alive,
Mm-hmm.
even in our own lives. So as
Right.
I'm talking to people about preparation and submission and communication, I became a better communicator. I
Right.
became better prepared. I became a better listener and accepting of other people and other things, and I began to grow because of it. And
Right.
so, mhm,
In essence, you made a decree in your own life,
that's right.
right? And in a world where you could have just said, nobody's telling me how to do what I want to do in life. I'm just give up. Sometimes I meet people, they've worked a job their whole life, but they never got around to fulfilling their actual destiny.
Right.
And that also causes a level of stress that is very hard to deal with when people get out into their older ages. And so, this remains a positive conversation for the whole entire community today. And the part about it that we're talking about right now is how when you make a decree in your own life, then that decree will provide leadership for you.
That's right.
Moving forward.
Dr. Curry said it to me this way,
Dr.
and
Who?
I accepted it. Dr. Gerald Curry.
Okay.
He's a retired professional kickboxer,
Okay.
and he said it this way, amongst other many very great things. Don't look at your problems as problems. Look at them as opportunities to find a solution.
Mm-hmm.
And just that is powerful. When we look at stress, we should look at stress that same way. What is stress? So a friend of mine, Jared Hines, he has higher level leadership. And he and I, we sat down and we wanted to flesh out what is leading young leaders, what is higher level leadership. And we
Hold on. What's the
talked
name
about
of it?
higher level leadership.
But you said what's leading young leaders? What's that about? That sounded good. What's that?
So leading young leaders is a system that was designed, inspired by God, by myself. And in this leadership system, it talks about stress appropriation. And so we broke down stress and what is stress and how do we identify stress. And we began to make what we coined stress tags. So instead of looking at it like it's a hard thing and it's all or nothing, well, we broke it down to the smallest molecule level and said, okay, we're going to tag this. Is it important right now? No. Okay, let's put it to the side. Do we have anything else going on? No. Okay, well, let's bring that back out and let's deal with this tag. And when we're able to look at it doesn't seem so stressful and it can actually become fun.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to deal with it. Okay, now I have a scavenger hunt. Now I have to go look to see if anybody else has dealt with this and what did they do to navigate this obstacle.
Right.
So how do I find the cheat codes to all of my obstacles in life?
Mm-hmm.
And it makes stress, well, not stress anymore.
Right. It makes it life. It makes stress a viable part of life. And so when you talk about the fact that you actually created a system, I want to say pause the conversation and acknowledge that that's powerful.
Thank
You didn't come up with just a phrase. You didn't come up with just a pamphlet. Just an after school program. You created an actual system, and systems is what gives way to repetition, and repetition is what gives way to progress, and progress is all we really are asking for. Progress is what young people in America are asking for. Progress is what families in America are asking for. Progress is what adults are asking for. Just progress. And systems are what produce progress. So I'm proud of you.
thank you.
Um, for sure. And when you talk about, how you broke it down into creating tags for different things, and as opposed to looking at something as an insurmountable um, challenge, looking at it as an opportunity for a scavenger hunt, right? It sounds to me like you're on the verge of creating a very powerful system. Where are you today with this system?
So currently, I'm working with the CEO of Aina Given. She's
What's that?
also so it's a I used to work with this great leader, and he introduced me to his wife, who is also a coach, mentor, and great leader herself, who works currently at the Rome Embassy, and she's an educator. So she also has her personal venture where she trains, coach, mentors women globally, actually. And it's Aina.com, AINA.com. Ms. Carmen Westbrook is working to help me become more of a coach, teacher, mentor. Because while I've had all this leadership experience and I've had all of this leadership training, I've never been in a position where I was able to coach in my own in my own realm or in my own domain or what have you. And so she's coaching me and teaching me how to go out and make this a tangible thing that we can actually plug into other areas of human interaction, relationship.
Wow. And so where do you guys look forward to rolling this out at?
So the plan was this year before COVID kicked in was to go speak to 30 schools, our school heads, and to talk about the implementation of the system, because the system is already a thing. Like anyone can take the system right now, they can adopt the system right now and put it to any program or any type of human relationship or negotiation, and it comes alive to assist in whatever venture they have, whatever goal, whatever aspiration they have. If it's dealing with the humankind, they could plug this system in and it'll grow things.
That's incredible.
Absolutely. Thank you. As far as what she and I are doing, she and I are trying to create curriculum so that we could teach what the system is. It's much like math. And everyone asks me all the time, why don't you monetize it? Well, it's like math. I don't want anybody paying me they could pay someone or pay me to teach them math. So if someone would like to be trained on what the system is, that's fine. But as far as the system itself, I don't want to make it. I don't want to put a price on it because we need it. It was created as a need to better our society and ultimately better the world.
That's outstanding. That's outstanding. Where can people find you if somebody wants to learn more about your system? If they want to roll it out in their school district, because it sounds like this is something that will be great in schools, or even in their communities, or even in their families. How can somebody get in touch with you?
So currently we have the Leading Young Leaders Facebook page is fb.me/start LYL. That's fb.me/start Leading Young Leaders. We are working right now through Vistaprint to get the website up and running. So that's currently it's currently on hold. However, we are using Excellence. So that's the brand. It's a subset of Leading Young Leaders. We're using that brand, monetizing that brand, which I actually have on the first, like, this is like a prototype shirt. Yeah, Excellence.
Talk about that. What's that represent and what's it mean?
So it's we're using this to monetize and to financially back the integration of Leading Young Leaders. What Excellence mean is just that and it's for children. So Leading Young Leaders is for children and young leaders, but Excellence is for children, essentially.
Okay.
Just to inspire them to learn more about the system. Excellence just says that although we're small like ants, we can do big things. Right. Ants, as we all know, can lift more of their body weight than any other animal on the planet. Right.
Yep.
And whenever they come together as a community, as a body, they're able to do marvelous and wonderful things. I mean, we have ant hills that are over 10 feet high.
Right. Yep.
Look at the size of an ant.
Yep. So David, let me ask you, as we round third base here, what's next for you? You're obviously a star. And how old are you, by the way?
So I'm 33 years old. What's next is the development of programs and integration into schools. So once I retire, I'll have the ability to actually fully integrate myself into building programs, hopefully nationally and eventually globally. But right now, I'm really focusing on getting Excellence up so that we can have the financial support and the financial means to actually push the system the way that we want to.
Wow. This has been a great discussion tonight. What would you say to other 30-year-olds out there who might be wanting to get on the journey of discovering their true potential, but they haven't been able to get on that journey yet? What would you say to encourage them to get there?
You have to be your biggest fan. You have to be your biggest follower, and you have to lead yourself above anything else that is leading you other than God. And what that looks like is this: whenever you feel like you can't do it, you have to cheer your way through it. Fake it until you make it. And eventually you'll believe yourself. And once you believe yourself, so you have to have an out of body experience. Once you believe yourself, nothing will stop you. So that'll be the first thing I tell them. And then as far as like actually putting action to what it is they're doing, we can talk all day long.
Mhm.
Talking is cheap, but you have to know that if you invest time into what you're doing, you will succeed. Anything we give attention to or we submit to grows. Anything we submit to grows.
That's
If we
right.
put a seed in the ground and we leave it, it may grow, it may die. But if we put a seed in the ground and we submit to the requirements to nurture that seed, water that seed, it'll eventually grow. So
Right.
if you put time to hanging out and being lazy, laziness will grow in your life. If you
Mhm.
put time to speaking to people and communicating because you want to network, networking will grow in your life. So
Right.
anything that you submit to becomes stronger in your life.
That's right, David. You know, you've been a very quotable man tonight, and I think that our viewership is going to appreciate that. I have three questions for you that I'd like for you to answer very quickly. The first is, what is survival to you?
Survival is negotiating life, knowing, putting your interest above your position.
What is success to you?
Success is understanding that you're better this second than you were a second ago.
Excellent. And what is greatness to you?
Greatness to me is rare. Greatness, I truly believe, is something that um, not many can obtain.
Mhm.
Greatness is being remembered by others, not for what you did for them, but what you did through them.
Without a doubt. You
Michael
know,
Jordan is great because people can look at what he do and imitate him to become great.
right.
What you can do through them.
Without a doubt. You know, I want to give you your crown today. And I want to let you know that I respect what you're doing. I admire what you're doing, and it's very valuable. And I hope that after this broadcast is over, that you share this out as well as the people who are viewing this. Share this out. Come back and put your contact information in the comment section. And but as of today, my friend David Sanders Sr., you are one of America's next motivators. I look forward to conversations with you in the future potentially. There's been times in my life where I felt like I met somebody who was very similar to me, and I can tell you right now that you're sitting in a very similar position to the one that I'm sitting in, and I'm glad to have you in the likes of my company. All right. Until next time, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye bye.